Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving the floor. Honorable Speaker, from the proposition bench today, what we're going to tell you is we're going to tell you that it's totally justified that if your doctor overturns your own rule to vaccinate your children, and in doing so he saves your children's life. Honorable Speaker, why do we believe that? We believe that because for the last 60 years we have seen vaccinations saving countless lives. We have seen vaccinations eradicate diseases like smallpox and all those other diseases like polio. Honorable Speaker, we also believe that 17% of child mortality is caused by not having vaccinations. So, Honorable Speaker, it's your total job to go up and vaccinate your children. If you fail to do so or do not want to do so, the power of that attorney should fall into the hands of your doctors because he knows it better than anyone because he has gone through 8 years of medical school. Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day, why do the doctors hold most stakes in giving the vaccinations to the children? Honorable Speaker, we're going to give you a stakeholder analysis and tell you that why these children and the parents and everyone in this case would be happy if those doctors had the power to give them the vaccination. Before going into that, a little bit of context, right? Is Honorable Speaker, why the status quo needs changing, right? Honorable Speaker, we have seen that no power has been given to the doctor without the consent because Honorable Speaker, and as a result, Honorable Speaker, we have seen that in Nigeria in 2001, because of a Muslim fatwa, people died. An epidemic of measles and an epidemic of polio was seen, and 600 deaths were caused. And at the end of the day, half of world's polio in that particular year was recorded in Nigeria. Same thing happened in Swansea, United Kingdom. Same thing happened in Indiana, United States. Despite them being a very rich country, Honorable Speaker, no one can protect you from diseases even if you're rich and you do not have the vaccination. Honorable Speaker, on those countries, what we saw was the anti-vaccination regime stand up and tell that do not take vaccinations, and they did not, as it was very voluntary at that time. Honorable Speaker, what we saw is breakout of measles, and what we saw was breakout of polio in those particular regions, right? So, Honorable Speaker, on that particular note, what we would like to tell you is if you give the actual consent to the doctors and try on them and see what they do, then it will be the best opinion that you can have, because Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day they are the most knowledgeable person of it, and they are the people who will be treating your children if you do not vaccinate them. Honorable Speaker, why do we believe that the word consent comes into play here, do not come into play in here anyway? Because Honorable Speaker, consent is something that you need whenever there's a risk involved. Honorable Speaker, these vaccinations have very less amount of risks when compared to other surgeries or when compared to other medical intrusions, right? Honorable Speaker, we believe this in these cases vaccinations do not cause you any fatal syndrome or any fatal diseases, rather than save you from these fatal diseases. Honorable Speaker, secondly, what we're going to tell you is the logic that we have for proving to you why this motion should be passed and doctors should be given the right in order to safeguard them from in order to safeguard those children. Number A, we're going to tell you that the child's health interests actually outweigh the parental rights to refuse this medical treatment and the state also. Secondly, we're going to tell you that the obligation to doctorhood that those doctors have and the obligation to the state that they have. Thirdly, we're going to tell you the comparative analysis of whether or not to having the moral dilemma of giving your children the vaccination versus the fact that if you do not give your children the vaccination and you be arrogant at all, what happens in that case. Honorable Speaker, let's move on to what I have to tell you, the child's interest and the obligation to doctorhood. So, lastly, Raful comes up and explains to you why there is a comparative analysis in our bank. So, Honorable Speaker, let's see what kind of interest the child has and why the state can actually outweigh the parental rights in this case. Honorable Speaker, we believe in this case a hard immunity is needed in order to safeguard all the children around you. Remind you that a particular vaccination of a children not only saves him but saves the people around him. Honorable Speaker, if a person with measles goes out and contacts with other persons who do not have that vaccination, that rate of measles goes up because, Honorable Speaker, measles can go throughout air, measles can go throughout water. Honorable Speaker, you see in this case the herd immunity that you had, that those people having the having more vaccination in a population of 100, if more people than 80 has that particular vaccination, then no disease can actually spread, because honorable speaker, those children who actually can have those diseases will be surrounded by children who do have that vaccination. So honorable speaker, at the end of the day, honorable speaker, if a particular amount of vaccination is not achieved, measles, polios and all those other syndromes can break out and actually harm your own community, harm your own children, to the extent that they die, to the extent that they get disabled, to the extent that the state loses thousands of and billions of dollars. Secondly, what I'm going to tell you is the child's interest and the state interest outweigh the parental rights on cases of religion, right? Honorable speaker, we have seen vaccinations not given to children because of religious superstitions, because of religious beliefs. Honorable speaker, on that case, what we have to say to the opposition is this: on the cases of Jehovah's Witness not giving blood transfusions, what we have seen people do was this: blood transfusions were still given because, honorable speaker, those were life-saving instruments, because without that particular blood transfusion, that particular adolescent child could not have lived, because he had cancer. Honorable speaker, on that particular case, what we would like to tell you is, this case is nothing different from having a Jehovah's Witness not having blood transfusion, because, honorable speaker, at the end of the day, if you do not have the vaccination, you die, or you get attacked by the disease, and on the way to build up your immunity, there's a very good chance that you might die or you might get disabled. Honorable speaker, thirdly, what we have to tell you is a fact where the state intervenes and where the state does not. Honorable speaker, the opposition might come up and tell us that the state is intervening too much into the personal liberty and the personal rights that each individual has, right? Honorable speaker, on that particular case, what we would like to tell you is, there's a fine line between intervening on your personal business and between intervening something that actually concerns the whole society. Honorable speaker, vaccinating your children is something that concerns the whole society, because at the end of the day, if your children is not well, his friends won't be well. If your children is not well, you won't be well, and as a part of a community, honorable speaker, the whole community won't be as sound as it was before. Honorable speaker, not to mention the fact that that particular child's right will totally be violated, because he cannot make his own decisions, which is going to be my last constructive, is how it actually strikes on the particular child's right? Honorable speaker, the child has a right to live. The child has a right to live a life enabled with his full functionality. Honorable speaker, if you do not giving the vaccination without, he do not have a consent at the age of 3, right? Without his consent and anything at all, honorable speaker, what happens is he gets a deadly disease, and maybe he lives from it. What he does is he lives his whole life disabled, just because you did not give him that particular medication. Honorable speaker, on those cases, what you believe is simply this: give the power of attorney to your doctor, because he is the most knowledgeable one on this particular topic, and he is the one who can actually make the decisions when it comes to your children's health. As you have been trusting him with your children's health to treat fever and flu, why not trust him with vaccinations, right? These are the questions that the opposition is going to have to answer us. What is the problem with giving the doctors the right of attorney when it comes to vaccinations? Because, honorable speaker, you trust him with your children's life when it comes to a kidney transplant, but you won't trust him with a vaccination which has no apparent side effects at all. So, honorable speaker, we believe the proposition will have a field day with this debate. Thank you, honorable speaker. Thank you all.